Okay, everyone, I'm going to give you guys my improved context engineering template today. The first thing I want to say is I'm not a fan of this term at all, but if I put it in the YouTube title, I'm pretty sure it's going to do well. So I am going to be putting in the title, but I do not like this word whatsoever. This is using an improved version of Cole Medin's template. It will also be on GitHub. So this is it right here. I'll probably fork it. I'm not sure how I'll do it exactly. I probably will fork it though, because that's the right way to do it, I believe. And all credit to Cole and then also the original maker of the original GitHub. But yeah, I'm going to give you guys my special sauce, my secret sauce in this video. That's going to be probably midway through this video. The first thing I'm going to show you guys is just how insane this process actually is. Okay, so for context, the example PRD on Cole's GitHub is 400 lines. The one that I generated is 700 lines. This one here that was generated by my new system, or the new improved version of other people's systems, is a lot longer. Let's just say that. It's 3,000 lines long, but if you read at the very top here, so core principles, context is king, include all necessary documentation, examples, and caveats. You can see here, it has actually selected Claude Sonnet 4. Now, it still made a mistake with the GPT model. Okay, you can see it used GPT 4.0 and it said not GPT 4.1 mini for some reason, even though GPT 4.1 mini is a real model. But we have this here, which is the correct Sonnet model, right? We have Gina here, Shopify, everything, right? So if I just scroll down a little bit and we have a little look. Now, actually, interestingly, it's also forgotten Pydantic. So even though the system is better, it's still not a perfect system. I don't know if it's even possible to make a perfect system. But you can see just how much more detail we actually have here. This is really, really good. Database, migrations, everything. This is a huge, huge project, as you can see here. So you can just see here all of the gotchas and library quirks, which is really, really cool. Implementation blueprint, you can see here, data model structures. This is all fairly standard. But if we just scroll down a little bit, let's just search for Sonnet, right? You can see orchestrator implementation, right? So there's a full implementation of the orchestra, task 7 product optimizer, base language, country, title, extract competitive data. So this is exactly what I had in the instructions. And I'll tell you right now, the first time that I used the system, it did not build this entire thing. The thing is with these projects, right, is that the plan that is generated is the plan that is used by Claude to create the entire project. So if the plan is flawed, the entire project is flawed, right? So this is just a much more in detail example. So you can see here, it's also got incredible amounts of detail on the Shopify implementation. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've changed and then give you the system and then show you how it works as well. So I tried a few different things to get this to work. You can change, obviously the initial.md here is extremely detailed. I probably spent an hour just writing out this this detail. This will not be included in the GitHub just because it has some things in that I wouldn't necessarily want to just have on GitHub, right? But you can just use the initial here and just prompt exactly what you want in the example that Cole has, right? And then you just make your own initial.md, just like before. And then all I really changed was in the generate PRP, I added some things about research process, right? And then really quite a lot about research process, but this wasn't enough. I also had to edit Claude.md to include these points here, right? So these points basically say you need to do a large amount of research for this project. And this second one here means that it will do all of the research necessary in a very, very quick way. Like it will be done in like 5 minutes, basically. Whereas before this wasn't an option. Or not, it was an option, but it wasn't properly implemented, right? So you can see here, phase 1 is skeleton code with implementation comments, right? And then phase 2, full production ready code. Apparently it's already made that too. I'm not really sure about that. And then unit tests right here. So my plan is obviously to test this. I haven't fully tested this. All right, I've just generated this document here. But my plan is when I execute PRP, I'm going to specifically tell it to only do phase 1 and then only do phase 2 and then only do phase 3. Because otherwise what it does is it rushes to finish the entire project in one context window, which is not what we want at all. Now, there are a few changes as well to how I actually interacted with this. So just pretend that for now you have just imported the GitHub onto your local machine, which will be exactly the same as this, except the initial.md file, which I will be removing, and also this here because this is my stuff. But I'll make a new GitHub template, a new repo. All you have to do is get it on your local machine and then follow these steps that I'm going to show you now. Now, there are a couple of things that I did slightly differently inside Claude Code, just so you know. So the first thing I did is I used dangerously skip permissions so that I don't have to keep saying, yes, you can scrape this, yes, you can scrape that. Another thing I did is inside settings .local.json, I just added fetch here. I don't know if you need to do this, but I mean, it can now do this entire process without me even looking anymore. Now, what I'll do is I'll just do a new folder here and just call this don't look in here, right? And then I'll just put my currently generated stuff. I could also just regenerate it, but you know, I just want to make sure I've got this stuff because it is a really, really good example. So we'll also put that here, right, initial.md, so I can keep that for myself. And then I'll show you exactly how I got the system to run. So Claude, dangerously skip permissions. This is a really, really important step. Let's run it. Now you want to be in a brand new Claude conversation as well. If you're making a new PRD, right? Or PRP, sorry. So the PRP, everything is set up just like it was on Cole Medin's video, just with some changes. Design system.md as well. You don't have to use this. But if you want to try and copy a website, I haven't tested this. I don't know if this will work properly. But my idea is to try and copy what we've already got and rebuild the entirety of SEO Grove just in a new, slightly more agentic system, because it's very, very strong agentically right now, but like I would like to make it even stronger. Now, if you're slightly confused by anything so far, first link in the description, the school community. Basically what I do is I take everything that I'm talking about and I put it into written format with instructions. I'll be doing that with what we're talking about very, very soon. So if you're kind of thinking, what the hell am I doing, etc., then definitely check out the school community for a little bit extra help if you need it. Okay, so in order to check whether you've set everything up properly, what you want to do is you want to do /memory and then just make sure that the stuff that you see on Visual Studio Code is actually here, right, in the nano. To get out of this, you do Control X, just so you know. And now, instead of just running /generate PRP, which is fine, it might work, what I actually like to do with Claude, just to fully ensure that it understands what the hell's going on, read my incredibly specific rules on generating a PRP file, then give me a summary of them. Press enter. What it'll do is it'll just read and confirm that it's understood the PRP stuff, right? Instead of, I always think there's a bit of a disconnect sometimes between like what you think Claude knows and what it actually knows. So by reinforcing this at the very beginning of the process, you can see massive research, sacred tech truth, which basically means if I say use GPT 4.1 mini, do research on 4.1 mini, not on 4.0 mini. It's not quite exactly there yet, but one of the problems is OpenAI doesn't have, you can't scrape OpenAI's documentation. So actually, I just had a quick thought there. I might see if I can scrape their cookbook instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a slight change to the initial.md and show you guys how that would work. So OpenAI doesn't seem to let you scrape, but I'm hoping that cookbook.openai can be scraped. And so, yeah, that's just hopefully a better way to do it. So when I save that, it should use this cookbook link instead of the playground link. So complete code examples, include incredibly detailed code examples. So any AI can generate working, complete production-ready code from the PRP alone. 3 implementation steps, right? This is for context length. If you're using Gemini, which I might try very, very soon, to be honest with you, you probably don't need this. But I still probably would recommend the 3-step system just because then it can focus on what it needs to focus on, right? So the first thing it needs to focus on is building the framework, right? The second thing it needs to focus on is building the functionality. And then the third thing it needs to focus on is tests, right? To make sure everything works. Critical context, include documentation URLs. real code-based snippets, library quirks, and existing patterns. Validation gates provide executable commands for syntax and unit tests. Ultra-think, so I added the ultra-think feature just so that it actually thinks about what it's doing as well inside the prompt. If you think of initial.md and also generate.prp.md, this is basically a prompt, right? This is a prompt that it's reading. So if you want it to act in a slightly different way, all you have to do is edit this file here. Okay, and then finally what we want to do is we want to execute the PRP, right? Sorry, that was wrong. Exit-PRP initial.md, and then hit enter here. And then what it should do is, without me touching anything, without it needing anything from me, it should just start immediately because we're bypassing permissions. It should generate an entire thing. I was away only for 10-15 minutes earlier, and it seemed to completely smash it, right? So let's see, this is the entire system that has to create. It's a huge project. It even says it's a large project. You can read what it's doing here if you're interested. But you can see just by adding this thinking feature as well, I think this is going to really, really help in terms of making sure that it does everything properly. So you can see updated to-dos, research all documentation. This is a much better list in my opinion, but we'll see how the PRP gets implemented. I just realized I did the complete wrong command. Sorry about that, guys. So it's generate-prp initial.md. That was stupid. Okay, so actually I'll show you guys how this works. When you make a mistake like that, I'd recommend just restarting the conversation completely and just giving it the same instruction from before. This is actually, I'm glad that that actually happened because it's important to know that starting a new conversation is much better than it jangling around in the same conversation. So we'll just do that again and I'll be back when it's time to generate the PRP. Okay, so this time we do generate PRP initial.md. I'm definitely not playing RuneScape on the side. Okay, so this time it's going to generate it. I made a mistake just there, but I'm actually glad it happened because then that's also part of this is like restarting when it fucks up. That's how I iterate prompting, because if you try and do it from the same conversation, then you're not going to have a system, right? You're going to have something that worked once, but you're not going to have a system. So I'm just going to press escape here and say there is no initial code base because it's starting from scratch. I should probably remove that from the prompt or whatever. This is the part that I really want to show you guys, is the research part. So first it's going to just read these other files just so it has some kind of understanding of how to do things. So it's just read this to understand how to generate an MD file, a PRP, this as an example, and then the design system. Okay, so you saw there that it made an original mistake. It tried to go to /installation because it is called /installation, but it's actually /install. It managed to find that out, and now you can see it's on the agents section here, right? So it's doing actual genuine research into useful things instead of just doing like some base research on Google, which is what it was doing before. Now, or it was just scraping the first page and that's it. Now that's just not good enough, right? It needs to do much more scraping than that. So now you can see it's scraping models, right? So learning how to implement models, different models for different things, etc. It's now doing a scrape of tools, right? So function tools, it's going to have access to tools. Do you guys see how strong this is compared to the system before? Now, I'm not saying that the system before is amazing. It just lacked in this department here, in my opinion. And this is the biggest change between this new improved system and the system before, right? Multi-agent applications, it's now scraping this page specifically, getting an understanding of how to use multi-agent everything, right? This is stuff that, you know, it takes ages to copy and paste this stuff in, or you have to understand it yourself, etc. Now it's doing output. So this is teaching it how to return structured data. You can just see, guys, right? This is super, super powerful. If I had specifically told it to scrape MCPs, because I wanted to use MCPs, for example, it could have also scraped this. Now it just scraped this page, which looks like it's an example, which is perfect, right? This is exactly what I wanted it to do research into specific examples. Okay, there we go. I accidentally pressed escape here, which is really annoying, but obviously you guys won't make that mistake, hopefully. But now it's going to start researching OpenAI. Okay, this is what I was wanting it to do before. You can see now it's scraping more than one thing at once. It's doing some web search here. This might be because I pressed escape, right? But this is what I was trying to get it to do before, but it didn't seem to want to do it, but now it is doing it. So now it's scraping many, many different things at once, which is perfect, right? It's going to make that a lot faster. There we go. So now it's scraping a specific cookbook, which should have specific code in it. Perfect. Look at that. Bang. Loads of interesting stuff there. That's a really good one. Structured outputs. This is perfect because I told it that I wanted to do a lot of work with JSON. Bang. It's done exactly what I needed it to do. Again, which is pretty crazy, honestly. I'm like much more confident now that this system could actually generate this. Now, there is this problem here where it's doing web searches. I'm just going to stop it and say, this is great, but don't do any web searches. Just scrape, just fetch the links and study and in your instruction. Okay, so I mean, that was working perfectly, but it was just doing web searches. I always get a bit wary when it does web searches. Okay, here we go. So this is kind of the system that I'm trying to get, right? Where it just fetches everything at once. It's doing Pydantic again, but that's fine. I'm probably going to end the video very, very soon. I just want to kind of explain this process to you guys. And then obviously once it's finished this and it's given you that giant document, like the document that I showed you at the beginning of the video, which you can see here, then you just do slash execute PRP with the name of the PRP. So let's see how it does this time. So it's going cookbook, Anthropic, Gina Reader, perfect, Shopify.dev, admin.graphql, SEO Grove, which is for the look and feel of the website. Now all I want to do is that it sees, I just want to see it having like 10 different links here for each of these. And then it's job done, honestly. You guys can just see how powerful this system is. So more documentation, perfect. Queries, products, good. Mutations, product update. This is literally perfect. I couldn't have planned this better myself, honestly. There we go. Search analytics query. I mean, this is literally amazing. I'm gonna end the video there, guys. This is the process that I've created from the concept of context engineering, just to make it that little bit more context engineering. The important word for me in context engineering is definitely not engineering. I don't consider myself an engineer at all, but the important word is context, right? So look, I asked it for information about blogs. I wanted to create a blog generator. Bang, there we go. Search analytics query, mutations, collections, create. I mean, these are all perfect pages for it to read. Literally perfect. And it's still going. Look at that. Bang, it's still going. Streaming, bulk operations, run query, meta field, retries. A lot of these are 404ing, but not all of them are. I mean, yeah, I think we can all agree this is an improved system. Okay, and then it activates UltraThink for the PRP approach and structure based on the research. This is all in the same context window, so we haven't lost any of that juicy context from before. It's just researched all of these. I can tell you with 100% confidence that every single one of these links are exactly what I would have fed it if I had done it manually, right? And then it's going to use all of that to generate a giant fucking PRP that we can then execute. I am so much more confident in this system. I'll run this, not in this video, but I will run this exact PRP and I'll make another video on the result if people are interested in this one. Okay, so as this is an instructional video, I'm not actually going to let this run. I'm going to press escape and I'm going to tell you the last part of the secret here. Now you can see here it says uses GPT-4 Mini for most agents and Claude Sonnet 3.5 for orchestration. This is incorrect. Everything else is perfect. That is actually incorrect. Iteration prompting is so important when you're working on a project like this. And I found that editing the Claude.md file is the best way to do this. So the final part of this, I'm going to hard code a fix to this, right? I'm going to say LLM models. Always look for the models page of from the documentation links mentioned below and find the model that is mentioned in the initial.md. Do not change models. Find the exact model name to use in the code. So this obviously won't work for GPT because you can't scrape GPT's website for some reason. They might have blocked Claude Code just to piss them off, right? But yeah, I'm gonna end the video there. There'll be a GitHub link in the description to this GitHub, and yeah, go crazy with it, guys. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching all the way to the end of the video, you're an absolute legend. Check out the school community, and I'll see you very, very soon with some more content. Peace out.